To prepare for a big book study, let's get focused by having a 3-minute moment of silent meditation, followed by our family's fog light prayer.
And good evening, family. My name is Jamie, very grateful recovered alcoholic. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to start the meditation in a minute, so please take a moment to get situated.
Please be aware of background noises when you are unmuted and sharing, as not to distract others or yourself. We suggest we all observe proper Zoom etiquette. If you wouldn't do it in a live meeting, please don't do it here. Please keep yourself muted during someone else's share. We will call on you in the order.
Shana, your internet's going in and out again. And I'll go ahead and continue with this. Shana, you might have to kill your video tonight. From the foreword to the first edition of Alcoholics Anonymous, we of Alcoholics Anonymous are many thousands of men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book and of this group. And we lost Shana, so I will go ahead and continue with it.
I'm back.
Okay, good. You are a quick study.
All right, for the meditation, some suggestions are focus your breath and posture, breathe in God, and breathe out self.
Take this time to reconnect with God. Let the craziness of the day drift away and ask God to help you focus on the study. And on that note, let's bring in those cute little monks to do what the monks do. Enjoy your time with God. Thank you. And if you'd like to join us in our family's fog light prayer, it'll be on your screen in front of you. God, let your love shine through us like a fog light, so that those that are lost, sick, and dying can find your love through us. Amen.
And may we have our secretary's report. Mick?
Hi, thank you, Shanna. Hi, my name is Nicole, and I'm your recovered alcoholic secretary. I've asked Harry to read the recovered statement We read this notice to explain why many people in the group identified as recovered rather than recovering, and what it exactly means to be a recovered alcoholic. Take it away, Terry.
You're muted, Terry.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Terry, recovered alcoholic, aka Pickle Chips. Recovered. We are not cured of alcoholism. Recovered, but not cured. That presents a conflict to some alcoholics. If we were cured, we would be able to drink responsibly. No, we are not cured. The allergic reaction to alcohol will remain with us for a lifetime, but we have been restored to sanity. That was the problem. The main problem of alcoholics centers in his mind rather than in the body. That's from page 23. We are now sane where alcohol is concerned. Consequently, we have recovered.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you for joining us tonight. We meet every Tuesday starting at 5:30 p.m. Central Time with the Gerbil Fellowship Cage, where we chat for an hour before the start of the meeting. Feel free to bring side dishes to share with the buzzards. Our Big Book study starts promptly at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, and we ask that you be courteous and ready to begin at the sound of the foghorn. We take our Big Book study seriously because of this, chat will be disabled during the study. In the 1940s, when the only elements to sobriety were God, a Big Book, and one recovered alcoholic working with an untreated alcoholic, the success rate was as follows. From the forward to the second edition of Alcoholics Anonymous, page XX, of alcoholics who came to AA and really tried, 50% got sober at once and remained that way. 25% sobered up after some relapse, and the remainder, those who stayed on with AA, showed improvement. Can we have a show of hands, people joining us for the first time?
Welcome, welcome. Glad to have you with us.
Thank you, Jamie. And those new to AA? And then the recovered alcoholics. These are your potential sponsors. And is anyone celebrating a milestone this week? If you should require a Big Book of your own, we have large print editions available that can be sent to you by buzzard mail, delivery time questionable. Please remember to practice our 7th tradition by donating to the group address, Venmo, or PayPal posted in the chat and on the screen. Our suggestion is to purchase a Big Book and take an untreated alcohol through the program of recovery. Please visit our website, post in the chat. Thank you. See you next week.
Thank you, Nick, and thank you, Terry, for your service tonight. Very grateful, and Shayna's continuing with postings, so thank you, Shayna, for that. From Chapter 2, there is a solution. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism.
This is an open meeting, and as such, all who have an interest in alcoholism and our recovery are welcome. Because this is an open meeting, you need not identify yourself nor your reason for being here if you do not wish to do so. Your anonymity will be protected. We ask that you protect ours.
While this is an open meeting, membership in this group is limited to those who wish to recover from alcoholism and have a desire to stop drinking for good and all. Each member of Alcoholics Anonymous is a potential sponsor of a new member and should clearly recognize the obligations and duties of such a responsibility.
And before we begin our study of Big Book, last week we reviewed Tradition 1. Tonight, let's take a quick look at Tradition 2. please refer to page 562 of Alcoholics Anonymous. And Kenny is our traditionalist this week. Come on in, Kenny.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kenny. I'm alcoholic. Tradition 2. We have the long form and the short form. The long form is shorter than the short form, so I'm going to read the short form. For our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a living God as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusting servants. They do not govern. When I read this tradition, I thought about my experience with it. And I remember some years back, I belonged to a group called University Heights. And I started doing service there. And at first, I just did the ashtrays, brooms, and chairs. That's when we were smoking. So there used to be ashtrays. And I would show up to the meeting early and do that service. Then I got promoted to making the coffee. And I enjoyed that service because everybody would compliment me on the coffee. But I think they did that to everybody. Afterwards, I got a chairman position to one of the meetings that the group held. And then later on, I got promoted to overall chairman. And through all of that, my sponsor guided me and explained to me that it was about service. So we was having a group anniversary, and one of the people who came to the group anniversary was selling merchandise, and one of the members got very upset, and she came to me, said, "You're the chairperson. You got to go tell them they can't do this and this and this and that." And I thought about, that there's no eyes are used. So I said, why don't you go ahead and explain to him about our traditions, rather than me go over there and try to expel anybody. I just delegated it, And she went calmly over, after I talked to her, she thought she had the power. So she went and she calmly explained to him that we don't do that here. And it worked out. And what I learned from that experience is that, there are no bosses or anything like that, but we're all servants, and we do have ways that we carry ourselves. There'll be panhandlers, there'll be other people doing other things because people experience life. And as a trusted servant, we don't order people. We don't compel them and like you must. But we share with them what our group conscience is, and we ask them to apply, to comply. And most people are willing, because one thing about AA, people want to do the right thing. At first, they do it because they don't want to suffer and drink it. And after a while, they do it because they care. Also, when reading on the tradition, they talked about how the group might start, and the first members would take control and run that group. But eventually, they have to let go and pass the positions that they hold, chairperson, treasurer, secretary, on to other members. This is the spirit of rotation. It keeps everybody fresh, and for me, I think it keeps everybody humble, and it keeps them in compliance with there are no big U's, there's no ultimate authority. Our ultimate authority is the loving God that He expresses Himself in our group conscience. And our group conscience is basically consciousness of the group as God express himself. So where the group is at spiritually, it'll come out in the group conscious, you know. And sometimes the group conscious make mistakes, but we learn from it and we continue to grow from that experience. And that's about all I got to share on group on tradition 2. I hope I was of help to someone.
Thank you, Kenny. Excellent job, my friend. Excellent job. And on that note, this group has the spirit of rotation in it, and we do have service positions available, and we are happy to rotate within those. So if you'd like to become a home group member of this group and you like what we have to offer, we are happy to do that with you, even though you might be in another state, and we are happy to train anybody to do anything that we do within this group. So moving on to our weekly segment of That Ain't in the Book, and we hear a lot of stuff said in meetings that can't be reconciled with what our big book has to say about the program itself. One of those things that we hear people say in meetings is, there are no musts in the book. So my friend Teresa is going to come in and tell us what the book has to say about that on page 159 and in the 3rd paragraph. Welcome, my friend.
Hi, Teresa, recovered alcoholic. Though they knew they must help other alcoholics if they would remain sober, that motive became secondary.
Thank you so much to all of you for your service tonight. Very grateful.
And as we study, please make sure that we use our pens, highlighters, and rulers so that you can share this experience with another alcoholic.
Boy, you guys are doing the quick handoff with Ezra tonight. In order for us to stay focused as we study the Big Book, we use the Big Book Study Guide prepared by Joe and Charlie and Krusty Cliff of the Dallas Primary Purpose Group. And I just want to make this comment, because Joe and Charlie started this whole thing, and so many people like Joe and Charlie, I really love to think that essentially what we're doing is we're carrying on the work that they started so many years ago. Okay, Shana, go ahead.
Tonight we are going to start our recap on page 10, which will be read by Sassy Pickle or Heather, followed by our study portion read by Nancy.
After the page is read, we will ask questions from the imaginary podium, starting back at the page where Nancy begins the study portion tonight. The answers will be one sentence unless otherwise specified, and multi-part questions are simply one sentence answers split up by commas, semicolons, hyphens, and other fun bits of punctuation.
Basically, in English, what that means is that we are going to read the material once through and then dissect the information a second time through the question and answer format. Notice how the language and the questions gives us a new light in which to consider the study material.
This is important because hearing the question and rereading the content offers a definite way of comprehending the material covered. After we have completed the study, we open up for comment, questions, observations based on what we just read. And if you've had spiritual experiences with this information, please share that experience. Please keep your share on topic and under 5 minutes. At the 5-minute mark, I might hold Doji up and let you see his multiple colors to let you know your time is finished.
However, Big Book study is not therapy. Should you begin sharing on topics which are more appropriately discussed in a different setting, i.e. a sponsor, please do not be offended when we cut that conversation short and send the buzzard snipping at your heels. For that purpose, we have fellowship meetings before and after our study time.
You can never go wrong by commenting on the pages studied, which brings us to the words of one of our co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. Sobriety, freedom from alcohol through the teaching and practice of the 12 steps is the sole purpose of any Alcoholics Anonymous group. And I know I get this part, Shane. One of these days you're gonna pick it up. That's okay. Ezra's gonna intently listen. Um, we didn't just wake up today and say we're gonna be studying these pages in Bill's story. We started January 7th will be 4 years ago that this book study started here in my home with 12 other alcoholics, and it starts at the title page, goes line by line. We did it through the preface, through the forwards. We have the questions and answer format for absolutely everything in the book, and we have gone chapter by chapter with everything. When we are done going through the first 164, we spend a few weeks on Dr. Bob's Nightmare, and then we go to 2 weeks in the traditions, and we finish it out with a fourth and final week on the spiritual experience. It is a 94-week book study from beginning to end. So I hope that you will stay with us for the entirety of the journey. If you like what we have to offer, if you've missed any of it in the past, you can always pick it up on the podcast as well and go back and listen to any of the weeks. It's a great thing to do while you're driving down the road killing time. So, or flying across the country or whatever else you might do. So I hope you will enjoy the journey, learn a lot, and become part of the experience of what our book truly has to offer. Thank you.
All right, and before we start the recap, we will need 5 or 6 virtual hands raised if you'd like to be one of our answer readers. Please be aware again that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded so that we can put it on our website and our podcast and our YouTube channel.
Just a reminder that our YouTube channel is still audio only. We're just using YouTube for the audio portion of the platform. That's all. There's no video. So if you don't want to use your name, you use a fake identity, pickle name, whatever makes you happy. Okay, Shana, you're on. Or actually, Sassy's on, huh? Hi, Sassy.
Hello, I am Sassy Pickle, Heather, a grateful recovered alcoholic. With ministers and the world's religious, with the ministers and the world's religions, I parted right there. When they talked of a God personal to me, who was love, superhuman strength and direction, I became irritated and my mind snapped shut against such a theory. To Christ, I conceded the certainty of a great man, not too closely followed by those who claimed him, his moral teaching most excellent. For myself, I had adopted those parts which seemed convenient and not too difficult. The rest I disregarded. The wars which had been fought, the burnings, and the chicanery that religious dispute had facilitated made me sick. I honestly doubted whether, on balance, the religions of mankind had done any good. Judging from what I had seen in Europe and sensed, the power of God in human affairs was negligible. The brotherhood of man, a grim jest. If there was a devil, he seemed the boss universal, and he certainly had me. But my friend sat before me, and he made the point-blank declaration that God had done for him what he could not do for himself. His human will had failed. Doctors had pronounced him incurable. Society was about to lock him up. Like myself, he admitted complete defeat. Then he had, in effect, been raised from the dead, suddenly taken from the scrap heap to a level of life better than the best he had ever known. Had this power originated in him? Obviously it had not. There had been no more power in him than there was in me at that minute, and this was none at all. That floored me. It began to look as though religious people were right after all. Here was something at work in a human heart which had done the impossible. My ideas about miracles were drastically revised right then. Never mind that the musty past, here sat a miracle directly across from the kitchen table. He shouted great tidings. I saw that my friend was this much more inwardly reorganized. He was on a different footing. His roots grasped new soil. Despite the living example of my friend, there remain in me the vestiges of my old prejudice. The word God still aroused a certain antipathy. When the thought was expressed that there might be a God personal to me, this feeling was intensified. I didn't like the idea. I could go to such conceptions as creative intelligence, universal mind, or spirit of nature, but I resisted the thought of a Caesar of the heavens, however loving his sway might be. I have since talked with scores of men who felt the same way. My friend suggested what then seemed a novel idea. He said, "Why don't you choose your own conception of God?" That statement hit me hard. It melted away the icy intellectual mountain in whose shadow I had lived and shivered many years. I stood in the sunlight at last. It was only a matter of being willing to believe in power greater than myself. Nothing more was required of me to make a beginning. I saw that this growth could start from that point. Upon a foundation of complete willingness, I might build what I saw in my friend. Would I have it? Of course I would. Thus I was convinced that God is concerned with us humans when we want him enough. At long last I saw, I felt, I believed. Scales of pride and prejudice fell from my eyes. A new world came into view.
Thank you,
Thank
Heather.
you so much, Heather. And now, Nancy, can you come in with this study?
Nancy Alcoholic. The real significance of my experience in the cathedral burst upon me. For a brief moment, I had needed and wanted God. There had been a humble willingness to have him with me, and he came. But soon, the sense of his presence had been blotted out by worldly clamors, mostly those within myself. And so it had been ever since. How blind I had been. At the hospital, I was separated from alcohol for the last time. Treatment seemed wise, for I showed signs of delirium tremens. There I humbly offered myself to God, as I then understood him, to do with me as he would. I placed myself unreservedly under his care and direction. I admitted for the first time that of myself I was nothing, that without him I was lost. I ruthlessly faced my sins and became willing to have my newfound friend take them away, root and branch. I have not had a drink since. My schoolmate visited me, and I fully acquainted him with my problems and deficiencies. We made a list of people I had hurt, or toward whom I felt resentment. I expressed my entire willingness to approach these individuals, admitting my wrongs. Never was I to be critical of them. I was to write all such matters to the utmost of my ability. I was to test my thinking by the due God consciousness within. Common sense would thus become uncommon sense. I was to sit quietly when in doubt, asking only for direction and strength to meet my problems as he would help me. Never was I to pray for myself, except as my request pour on my usefulness to others. Then only might I expect to receive, but that would be in great measure. My friend promised when these things were done, I would enter upon a new relationship with my Creator. that I would have the elements of a way of living which answered all my problems. Belief in the power of God, plus enough willingness, honestly and humility to establish and maintain a new order of things were the essential requirements. Simple, but not easy. A price had to pay, a price had to be paid. It meant destruction of self-centeredness. I must turn in all things to the Father of lights, who presides over us all. There were revolutionary and drastic proposals, but the moment I fully accepted them, the effect was electric. There was a sense of victory, followed by such a peace and serenity as I had never known. There was utter confidence. I felt lifted up, as though the great clean wind of a mountain top blew through and through. God comes in most men gradually, but his impact on me was sudden and profound. For a moment was alarmed and called my friend, the doctor, to ask if I were still sane. He listened in wonder as I talked. Finally, he shook his head, saying, "Something has happened to you I don't understand, but you had better hang on to it. Anything is better than the way you were." The good doctor now sees many of men who have such experiences. He knows that they are real. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you both. Awesome. Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll go back for the study portion, and then we'll read line by line. And if I can get my stuff pulled up here, just be sure that you speak clearly into your microphone. We will ask the questions just from our script by Joe and Charlie and Krusty Clip. The answers to the questions will be sentence by sentence, coming directly out of this week's study, beginning with the first sentence and ending with the last one. All right. I hope I did not thoroughly confuse you with that.
You did good, and I'll be coming in with a bunch of comments. Remember, their hands are going to drop once they start to speak.
Yeah,
too.
mine keep dropping.
Yeah.
You want to write down the order of hands real quick, Shayna?
Yes.
And then you won't have to worry about it, folks.
Trish taught me a little trick. All right, so the batting order I see right now is Kenny, Art, William, Nick, Lynn,
My hand keeps dropping.
Sarah.
It's okay, Nancy. It'll be fine. And if
All
every
right, so that's 5. Why am I missing?
no, you got Nancy as 6.
Oh my.
You got
This is
Kenny,
great.
Art, William, Nicole, Lynn, and Nancy. And
I just can't count. I got it. Thanks, you guys.
okay, everybody can go ahead and unmute, please.
Okay, so starting at page 12, first question to you, Kenny. What did Bill then realize about the doggerel on the old tombstone at Winchester Cathedral?
The real significance of my experience in the cathedral burst upon me.
Excellent, thank you. And then Art, for a brief moment, Bill had needed and wanted what?
For a brief moment, I had needed and wanted God.
Thank you. And William, when Bill was willing to call on God, what happened?
There had been a humbling willingness to have him with me, and he came.
Thank you, and I'll have several comments coming in, and here comes the first one. Have you ever found yourself in deep trouble and tried to make a deal with the God of your understanding.
Uh-huh.
Did God fail you? Did you keep your end of the bargain?
Okay. Thank you, Jamie. All right, and Nick, what ended Bill's feeling of the presence of God?
But soon the sense of his presence had been blotted out by the worldly clamors, mostly those within himself.
Thank you. And Lynn, how long and what kept Bill from being able to sense that presence again? This is 2 sentences, please.
And so it had been ever since, how blind I had been.
Thank you. All right, and then Nancy, what happened at Towns Hospital?
At the hospital, I was separated from alcohol for the last time.
Thank you. And then we're going back to Kenny. Why did Bill believe it was a good idea to go to Towns Hospital?
Treatment seemed wise, for I show signs of delirium tremens.
Bill entered the hospital on December 11th, 1934, remembering that Dr. Silkworth predicted that Bill would die of a heart attack during DTs or become a wet brain.
Thank you, Jamie. And then we're going to Art. What was the first thing he reported doing at the hospital? 3 sentences.
There I humbly offered myself to God, as I then understood him, to do with me as he would. I placed myself unreservedly under his care and direction. I admitted for the first time that of myself I was nothing, that without him I was lost.
This was Bill's
Thank you, Art.
step 3.
Thank you, Jamie. And William. He ruthlessly faced what and became willing to have what happen?
He ruthlessly faced my sin and became willing to have my newfound friend take them away, root and branch.
Thank you, William.
This was Bill's steps 6 and 7. And another comment. Bill made this decision on the afternoon of December 14th, 1934.
All right, and Nick, by taking the steps as we now understand them, was Bill successful in sobriety?
I have not had a drink since.
Thank you.
Bill lived another 36 years and never returned to drinking.
Lynn, what did Bill share with Eddie?
My schoolmate visited me, and I fully acquainted him with my problems and deficiencies.
This was Bill's step 5.
Thank you. And Nancy, what was Bill willing to make restitution? Wrong one. I'm so sorry. What list did Bill make with Evie's help?
We made a list of people I had hurt or toward whom I felt resentment.
This was Bill's steps 4 and 8.
Thank you. Sorry about that, guys. And Penny, was Bill willing to make restitution?
I expressed my entire willingness to approach these individuals, admitting my wrongs.
This was Bill's step 8.
Thank you. And Art, did Bill intend to make restitution? 2 sentences, please.
Never was I to be critical of them. I was to write all such matters to the utmost of my ability.
This was Bill's step 9.
Thank you. And William, what did Bill do to test his thinking?
I was to test my thinking by the new God consciousness within.
This was Bill's step 10.
Thank you. And Nick, as a result, what did Abby tell Bill would happen to his thinking?
Common sense would thus become uncommon sense.
Hang on just
Thank you.
just a second. Updating chat here because we had someone who just showed up. I just put it in the chat, Larry. This was Bill's step 11.
Almost. What was Bill to do when in doubt?
Oh, sorry.
And that is going to Lynn.
I was to sit quietly when in doubt, asking only for direction and strength to meet my problems as he would have me.
See, I threw it out of sync. That was Bill's step 11.
Thank you. And Nancy, how often did Abby tell Bill he could pray for himself? And then is there an exception to the never?
Never was I to pray for myself, except as my request bore on my usefulness to others.
Awesome, thank you. And Kenny, did Abby tell Bill that prayer and meditation could be practical and productive? 2 sentences, please.
Then only might I expect to receive, but that would be in great measure.
Thank you. And Art, Abby promised Bill that once he had taken the steps as we now know them, Bill would know 2 things. What were they?
My friend promised when these things were done, I would enter upon a new relationship with my Creator, that I would have the elements of a way of living which answered all my problems.
Thank you. And William, what did Abby tell Bill were the essential requirements for real success in sobriety?
Believe in the power of God, plus enough willingness and earnest and humility to establish and maintain the new order of things. What's the essential requirements?
Thank you. And Nick, this is a 3-part question. Is the program simple? Is the program easy? Is this precious thing a gift?
Simple but not easy. A price had to be paid.
Thank you. And Lynn, what must be destroyed?
It meant destruction of self-centeredness.
Thank you. And Nancy, who must I let handle all elements of my life?
I must in turn in all things to the Father of light who presides over us all.
Does this mean he is going to manage everything in my life?
And Kenny, were these very common proposals? And what happened to Bill once he accepted them? Read the rest of the paragraph, please.
These were revolutionary, drastic proposals, but the moment I finally accepted them, the effects was electric. There was a sense of victory, followed by such a peace and serenity as I never knew. There was utter confidence. I felt lifted up as though the great clean wind of the mountaintop blew through and through. God came to most men gradually, but his impact on me was sudden and profound.
This is how Bill describes his spiritual experience or bright light.
All right, and Art. After it passed, what was Bill's concern?
For a moment, I was alarmed, and I called my friend the doctor to ask if I was still sane.
Thank you. And William, did Dr. Silkworth really listen to Bill?
He listened in wonder as I talked to him.
Thank you. Nick, what did the doctor say? 3 sentences, please.
Finally, he shook his head, saying, "Something has happened to you I don't understand, but you had better hang on to it. Anything is better than the way you were."
Lynn, was Bill's spiritual experience the only one that Dr. Silkworth witnessed?
The good doctor now sees many men who have had such experiences.
Thank you. And Nancy, the final question. What was Dr. Silkworth's view on spiritual experiences?
He knows that they are real. Yay.
Yay! Thank you all so much. And this will open up with book that was just read. Please feel free to share. A friendly reminder as we share, absence of profanity offends no one. We are open for comment, questions, observations based on what was just read. If you have spiritual experience with this information, please feel free to share. And we raise hands around here, and if I don't see any, then I look for smiles and I call it.
Right on.
I appreciate everyone's patience tonight, too. We've had technical difficulties. Who wants to kick us off? Oh. All right, William. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. My name is William Alcoholic, and I'm always on his awareness of what was going on and when he was drinking and when he was getting sober. And and I had to come here and had that education gradually recovery process, and I thank God for that too, because I think if I had got it right away, I wouldn't have hung around, So thank God for Bill, his experience and his stick to this to stay here and pass his information on to us, because I identify everything that he's saying, especially the upbringing. Then we went in off the last time about the church and how he talked with his friend and all that stuff, and everything. I just identify. I could just go on and tell it. He said that common sense become uncommon, and I truly believe that we all is born with a sixth sense. You can see little babies, if they feel threatened by you, they'll do something to get somebody's attention and let you know that that's not them. But I drank until all that went away, and because I used to build myself up on that. I had common sense, deep conversation. I may not have been the most educated person, but I had good common sense, So, but as I began to drink, those things that began to get in the way were like fear, pride, ego, selfishness, and all that other stuff that I learned along the way, So it became emotionally difficult for me to be involved in anything, But I thank God for that. And as we were going on, especially he talked about whenever at the end of the other, he told us to choose your own conception of God, and that's what really helped me. You know what I mean? And as he began to progress through the program, and he be talking about, he become more God conscious, and that's what I did. I became more conscious of the program. This desire for living. I could no longer get away with that. Like you say, as soon as I began to think, and I say it most of the time, I say I'll be batting about 80%. Most of the time when I start thinking, I ask God to forgive me right away for thinking like that, judging other people, because I learned through this process, even though on the outside, as a human shell, we look somewhat the same: 2 eyes, mouth, 2 ears, 2 arms, 2 legs, and all these similarities, but inside, what we go through, that cannot be measured by looks and stuff. So I had to be educated on myself so I could see that in you, so I could be of that. And it's just so much here that I was listening, bothering my head today. You know what I mean? But what happened, and even during this step, as he began to process through the steps, how he was able to do that. It took a lot of meetings, a lot of coming back for me to chip away at that pride. I have that. When people used to ask me, "Can I help you?" I said, "I got it. I know." My biggest thing was, "I know," and stuff like that. That stood in the way. Today, I try to be more open and listen more to people, and trying to get that. And truly believe this is purpose. This is my true purpose. I grew up, like he said, in church. All my family in church, still in church. And when I was drinking, and I can remember seeing where my life was going, and thinking about what I was told when I was in the church, and I would say something like, "I'm going to hell anyway. I might as well go out with a blaze of fire on my mind." You know what I mean? And I would take that drink, and it seemed just like being straddled a fence. I'll follow it to the other side and go into oblivion. So it just so as he went through this process and had the white light experience and all that stuff that happened to him instantly, and gradually it happened to me too. So I'm grateful to have a purpose in life, and I truly believe my great purpose. And if anything else come along, if anything else come along after that, I'm more aware. This is not about you, William. It's about your higher power. So I have to try to be there. Even sometimes I don't want to be it. I think about it. This is part of your love. So thank you so much for listening, and I'll share my time.
Thank you, William. I'm very glad you're here. Oh boy, I see no smiles, or my computer's just frozen.
No, it's a dental chair kind of night.
Oh, Rick, you're either really still or frozen. No, you're not. You're not frozen. You want to come on in?
I'll keep it short. Rick Alcoholic. Baby's going to bed in the next room over here. I was afraid in the beginning to turn to him. I believed in him. And my fear was that if I had turned to him and I failed him by doing what I still wanted to do, because I came to AA still wanting to drink, that he would act like a human. "Oh, you burnt me before. I'm not gonna help you again." That's the way I thought of him. Today, I no longer think of him as that way. I to him every day still. With, you know, the effect was not electric for me when I turned to him, and neither was there a sense of victory. But what followed was peace and serenity that I never felt before, and his impact was instant on me. But it took me a little bit of time to realize that I was not drinking since the day I asked him to help me. And I think I've shared it here before. I wish I had the date I did that. Believe me, I would reset my sobriety date to that day. I don't care how much time I already had or didn't have. My gratefulness and thankfulness for this Thanksgiving time is I keep it at being thankful and grateful to him. I'm living a life now that's not designed by me, but I wouldn't trade it in for anything else I can come up with. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. I'll come in for a minute. Oh no, Jamie has his hand up. Yay!
No, you go right ahead, young lady, and I will yield to the mother with child in arms.
I keep wondering if you guys can hear the baby music. No?
Nope.
Okay, cool. Good to know. Shane, a recovered alcoholic. Very grateful to be here. Very grateful and honored to be a part of this group. And on my will, self-will or self-centeredness, I block myself off from that light. I still do it, but at least now, it's hopefully short-lived because of the tools from this program, what the book tells me to do. From coming in here, being a part of service, having sponsorship, working with another alcoholic. This past week did not go anything like I thought it was supposed to, we had planned it out. We were all supposed to go to Thanksgiving at my grandmother's house. Well, Wednesday night, my family not me, I tested positive for COVID, and then my husband and all the kids, so, we couldn't. But what was bizarre is we happened to get a free turkey. My work handed out a free turkey a week, or 6 days before, so it was just thawing in the fridge. We had delivery groceries that could come, and we did Thanksgiving here, and we all took part. Me not involved, which was excellent, because usually I'm trying to direct everybody on where they need to be and where they need to go and how they need to behave, and but I got to be removed from it, and it was a beautiful experience, and everything just worked. So usually when I am just willing to get out of the way, it usually works out really well. Like tonight, where I wasn't, anticipating on being a part of this, but this I think was fantastic, and it works the way that it works, as long as I'm willing. And it's not for me; it's got to be something way beyond me. And I believe it was my sponsor that told me. They said, if you got everything that you thought you wanted, you'd be selling yourself short because you have no idea. And so that's all I got. Thank you all.
Thank you, Shana. Good evening, family. My name is... yeah, Larry, go ahead.
I missed most of it. I've been back and forth from the hospital all week long. My sister had quadruple bypass, so. But I thought I'd pop in, and I'm sorry I was late. But I do love Bill's story. I think that's what you was reading. I'm pretty sure. And I think I got the gist of where you were at. So, I know for me, I related to the two gentlemen's shares because I know when I came into AA, I really felt hopeless. I felt hopeless. And the last gentleman's share, I related in the fact that not that. See, I believed in God and everything, and I knew what higher power I would have to have. The problem I had was I didn't believe that God believed in me or even was going to listen to me. I felt as though, as the first gentleman shared, he had already made up his mind and he was sending me to hell. So, I had committed an unpardonable sin. I knew it. I had already received the gift. I gave the gift away. I abused the gift and I shoved it back into his face and gave God the middle finger. And so, therefore, God had no more use for me. And so, when I came into AA and they told me about this spiritual help that I needed, I only knew of one spiritual help. So, and I already blew that. So I thought I was the one hopeless case that AA was going to have. But I had a sponsor, and thank goodness for good sponsors, because he did not shove God down my throat. What he did was he began to just put service in front of me. He just kept me so busy for the first 8 months of my sobriety, I'd say, almost the first year of my sobriety, that I honestly did not have time to get sober. I thought about it that first year. I could say 100 times. I tried to make plans to get drunk, and something was going on that week, and my brain would say, I can't get drunk. I've got this meeting. I've got this report I have to give. I've got to do this. I've got this responsibility. What are they going to say if I don't show up? All kinds of stuff that my sponsor made me responsible for. Gave me keys. I was responsible for money. That was a miracle in itself, because before I came into AA, I was a thief. And here I am in charge of money for the whole district for the pink can thing, which collected money for the district jail and prison distribution of literature and books. So he kept me busy. And by the time the 9 to 12 months was up, he finally got around to begin to talk to me about some spiritual aspects of this program, and he said, God, why do you think God won't hear you? Or why do you think God won't listen? He already knew what my higher power was. So I started giving him all the reasons, and I had a list of them. And he stopped me after about 3/4 of down the list that I had prepared in my mind of why God won't hear me. He said, wait, just a minute. I want to ask you another question. When in your life when did you feel closest to God? When in your life? What age were you that you felt closest to God, that he heard you when you prayed? And I thought, I really thought, because I had been an ordained minister, but man, I didn't feel real close to God during those years because I struggled with alcohol. Man, it was like, drink and then have to get on my knees for 2 or 3 days before I got in the pulpit and felt even worthy to preach to people. It was a struggle. It was actually torture for me to be a minister, and I did that for 15 years. So I couldn't say then, even though in ministry, when people looked at those 15 years, I excelled. I was on all kinds of boards, committees, and voted, and the churches grew. If you looked at the record, I was doing great, but inside I was dying. But I said, well, I was probably 9 years old. That's when I actually felt like God was listening to me, and I had actual relationship with him. Said, okay, we're starting there. Said, that's the God you're going to pray to. We're going to forget about everything else you've learned. We're going to forget about everything you've done. We're going to forget about everything you've learned, and that's the God we're going to. And that's what I did. I threw everything else out, and I began to pray to that 9-year-old God. And all of a sudden, things began to change for me, and I can relate to what Bill's story says, and on page 8, he started out in a hopeless case, and where he ended up was happy, joyous, and free. And the paragraph exemplifies the simplicity of the program, the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. If you just stay with the steps, even though it's a hopeless start, it ends with happy, joyous, and free. That's all I got.
Thanks.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Larry. Good to see you, my friend. And we will see you in about a month and a half in Nashville too.
Yeah, buddy.
And we will do what we do in the service structure. Good evening, family. My name's Jamie. Very grateful, recovered alcoholic. Thank you first off to everybody for being here tonight, and thank you to everyone who's been of service. Shana, thank you so much for stepping in on short notice with a couple of people out. Very grateful that we have folks that are willing to do this. Because the truth is it doesn't work without all of us working together, you know, and that's just the way it is. And it's one of the things that I love about our group, and one of the things I always say about this group and this meeting is we are a teaching group that learns together. And I believe that we are a bunch of God's kids just trying to help a bunch of God's other kids. And it's really just that simple for me. In tonight's study, he talks about the real significance of his experience burst upon him at the cathedral. And for that brief moment, he had needed and wanted God. And then he goes on to talk about, but soon the sense of his presence had been blotted out by worldly clamors. And then he decides to check into the hospital for the fourth and final detox. And I love the fact, and you know, the thing I have to remember is this is Bill Wilson's 12-step call to us. There's a place later in the book, in A Vision for You, where it talks about you may not have the opportunity to meet some of us, but that's not true. The truth is we get to meet them right here with what they have left us in this book, in their own personal stories. We get to hear what their experience was. So I love how he does his third step prayer. And if you look at it, as he, there I humbly offered myself to God as I then stood him to do with me as he would. I placed myself unreservedly under his care and direction. Isn't that the foundation of our third step prayer on page 63? It may not be the third step prayer in its entirety. And of course, on page 63, after the third step prayer, it tells us that we take some thought before taking this step. It also tells us that the wording of it is quite optional of how we do it. We may do it in our own words. We may not do it exactly the way that the book does. But the idea is important. Now here's what I have to remember about page 13. Bill, it shows us tonight how Bill took 10 steps in this few days period of time. Now at the time when he was in the hospital, the Oxford group only had 6 steps. But by the time the book is written, this work is broken down into what is the equivalent of 10 steps. And I think that has a great significant meaning in all of this. You know, and as I go through this reading, what am I hearing here? I'm hearing the experience from Bill Wilson himself of how to take the steps, not somebody else telling me how to take the steps, not somebody who isn't using the big book to show me how to take the steps and saying, oh, you need to write 47 pages with 300 people on your resentment list in your 4th step. Doesn't say anything about that. Bill's giving simple, clear-cut directions of how to take the steps here in his own experience. And of course, in the 12 and 12, he goes into more, in the essays in the 12 and 12, he goes into more detail of how the steps worked in his life, because that's his personal experience. in steps 1 through 12 and the 12 and 12. Why? Because he had a little more understanding of it then. But this is what he did. So here's a consideration. If I do, me, Mr. Pickles, if I do what Bill Wilson did, am I likely to end up with what Bill Wilson ended up with? There's a good possibility of that. Took me a lot of years, and it wasn't until just the last few years of reading this and studying the book this way that I came to the realization that he took these 10 steps on this page. But it's only because of studying the book this way. You know, and I love it. Here he's talking about his 8th step. I expressed an entire willingness to approach these individuals admitting my wrong. Step 9, never was I to be critical of them. I was to write all such matters to the utmost of my ability. Aha. Step 10, I was to test my thinking by my new God consciousness within. Uh-oh, hang on. I know a couple of people are going to fall off their chairs with this. I was to sit quietly when in doubt, asking only for direction and strength to meet my problems as he would have me. Bill's step 11. Oh, and what happens when oftentimes we talk with a sponsor or we do the work or something like that? I love that this book, I can read something in it and it always takes me back to something that Bill has already told me. So as I read this step 11th passage and I recognize here's what happens. I say, okay, that's good, I'm done. I close the book on it, and right back to the bottom of page 12. But soon my sense of his presence would be blotted out by worldly clamors, because I let all the clutter come back into my head and confuse me, and I just spiritually disconnected from God. Not because God disconnected me, not because God pulled away from me, but because I pulled away from God myself. God didn't do that to me. I made a choice out of my own free will to do that. Again, if I followed the action, if anyone in this room follows the action that Bill Wilson took, are we liable to end up with what Bill Wilson had? Now, Bill Wilson wasn't a perfect human being. He wasn't a saint. He had his problems. He was human, just like each and every one of us. We all have our difficulties, but we have a spiritual solution to continually address the problems within. Because it's not just the bottle that's our problem. We've got a problem living life. And what a beautiful thing. Thanks for being here. Somebody shut me up and come on in. Shana, where'd you go? Okay, I'm going to pick on Art then.
Hi everybody, my name is Art. I'm a grateful recovered alcoholic. And Joe's story is a very interesting one, and it parallels, in some ways, my own experience. In other ways, it's quite different. But in the ways that it parallels my experience, while I didn't have that sudden and electrifying kind of spiritual experience that Joe describes, I came here with having, I don't think I ever really denied the existence of God. Believed that he existed. But I had concluded that God wasn't much interested in me. And I didn't really believe that he would do anything for me. I think Bill was kind of that way too. But when he had his white light experience, and he was reminded of his experience at the cathedral back in his wartime service in the armed services. And I had never really had that kind of an experience before to relate back to. But I had come to a point of desperation that drove me to willingness to take another look. And, I think we read it last week where he makes the statement, perhaps religious people were right after all. And I kind of came to that realization as well. What I have come to understand in the last several years is that when I took step 2, I gained some hope. There was, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore society. And with that is develop some faith. And with that faith came hope. But when I can take it to the next level and develop some trust, to the point where I can trust that God is in charge and is doing what he needs to do, and all I have to do is go along with it. And with that kind of trust, I gain peace. And so, as a result of taking these steps and incorporating these ideas into my life, I find peace. And I don't have to try to run the world. I don't have to try to get somebody else to do what they don't want to do. I don't have to be worried about what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't have to carry the burden of what happened yesterday. And so I get to be at peace. I don't want anyone to get the idea that I am constantly and forever in that frame of mind, because things come in and disturb that peace from time to time. And sometimes I have nothing to do with it. Other times it's because I've done something or acted in a particular way, and it brings a little grief into my life. But I like peace. And so I try to stay there as much as I possibly can. And, you know, the way Bill describes the progression of his journey through the steps is exactly as it happens and has happened in my life. And, you know, where he says, the simple solution, but it's not necessarily easy. And I've been saying that for a long time. Simple doesn't mean easy. It just means you can understand it. It's easy to understand. And I don't have to understand God in order to learn how to utilize the power that is available through His presence in my life. I don't claim to understand God. You know, it talks about a lot about it in our book and in the program about God as I understand Him, or as we understood Him, and I don't pretend to understand God. But what I have learned is that it's not necessary for me to understand God in order to recognize His presence in my life. And when I recognize His presence in my life, I get to be free. When I look back over my life, I recognize places in my life where He has taken care of me, even when I was denying His care. And I don't have to continue to deny anything. I just have to become willing to accept the gift of sobriety. And you know, God has bestowed upon humanity a number of gifts. One of those gifts is free will. And he talks about it in the book a lot. And even in Bill's story, I'm not sure exactly what page it's on, but talks about the proper use of the will. And when I attempt to align my will with that of God, is the proper use of my will. When I try to use my will to bombard my problems and to confront everything that's wrong in my life, and I have to fix it, nothing gets fixed. But when I can align my will with that of God and ask Him to fix what's wrong with me, I'm going to have a chance for it to get fixed. And I've often said and heard that, you know, God needs my cooperation in order to fix me. And that's the extent of my cooperation. try to align my will with his, so that I'm not fighting against what God intended for my life. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Xavier. Thank you.
Thank you, Art. And I just put that that passage that you just talked about. It's in the 12 and 12, page 40, in step 3. Xavier, welcome, brother.
Good evening, Cam. I'm Xavier, recovered alcoholic. Glad to be here. Thank you for everyone's share tonight. I really got a lot out of it. I just got back home, so it made the drive really, really fun to listen to. This time around, 2 passages stuck out in particular. One was, he ruthlessly faced his, I think his sins, but root and branch. I love that term, root and branch. So he ruthlessly faced my sins and became willing to have my newfound friend take them away, root and branch. So that concept of step 6, when I do deep inventory, not just looking at the manifestation of whatever that resentment is or whatever's going on inside, but going deeper and finding out what fear, what's going on inside, what self-centeredness is going on inside that caused that manifestation. And I think that level of AA, I love for this program, that it allows me to get to the root and not just look at the branch. And then if I can discover what that root is, then through 6 and 7, I can create a awareness and then perhaps a willingness to let it go. But also simple but not easy, a price had to be paid. I love that line. It takes work when I'm not willing to do the work. My isms tend to come back pretty quickly. But if I am willing to do the work, I get so much out of it. I was thinking of that, I was listening to Bill's story. I used to be much more enthralled with how he got sober and the Oxford group and everything. And I think over time I'm much less enthralled in that there's a lot. I get so much out of listening to these stories, and I get so much out of it every time I listen to it and we get the chance to study it. However, I'm becoming in my life less interested in how he initially got sober. Okay, he was in hell and got out, but we've all been there. We all have our story how we were in hell and we got out, and I think that's great, especially more for a newcomer. But I'd be much more interested to learn what Bill did 4 or 5 years sober. Because you get sober, now what? You can't just keep having that initial experience. You got to do stuff. So I always appreciate continuing to go through the book over and over and over. But I'm finding in my life at the moment, I'm getting to a stage where I'm less interested in what happened yesterday, and I'm becoming more interested in today. I'm less interested in what I did to get stuff when I was in my personal hell. I'm more interested in how can I apply the steps to my life today? How can I go to bed tonight and do inventory and see where I grew and where I fell short? That's kind of where I'm at. And so really, really appreciated the reading. Appreciate everyone's shares. And that's all I got. And I think my wife is going to share for just a quick minute, if that's okay.
Absolutely. We always love to hear from your wife.
Oh, great. She's much, as I always say, she's much smarter and smarter for things to
you are a wise man for saying that,
Thank you. I'm well trained.
Yeah, I actually like the lines that he picked out too. I guess it's just getting that hope back in your life with sobriety that really, I didn't believe this program would work for me. And I love how Bill gives so many examples of that. And I love his high resolve and all the ways that he was going to solve his alcoholism, and that he goes through those examples in his story, because that's, obviously how I felt too. And I just felt like, I'm a smart person. I figured out all these other things in my life. I'll figure this out too. I just need another chance. I just need another chance. I just need another chance, And it wasn't until I was at my bottom that I realized I just need help. I just can't do this alone. It's weird because, like, I knew I was an alcoholic. My dad was an alcoholic, and I just didn't really care. I didn't really, I didn't think like, oh, I'm an alcoholic, I should go to Alcoholics Anonymous. I was just kind of like, well, I am an alcoholic, and that sucks. It didn't go much further than that. It was like, and I drink less than most alcoholics I know, or I don't drink every day anymore, and I used to. It was like whatever additional line came after that, but it was never like, maybe I could get sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. Until, it came to that last drink for me, when I was like, it was one of the stories in the book that talked about, the woman didn't know if it was like 5 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock at night. She woke up and she was super hungover, and that was like my last drunk. It was like November. I didn't really get sober till the spring, but I hit my bottom in like November, December, January, February, March, April. I finally got sober. Like, even when I was in that like real hell bottom through the like holidays and everything, I wasn't ready. It wasn't ready until that spring, and then this gift happened for me. And if you're new or coming back, it can happen for you. Just keep coming. It gets better, it gets easier, it gets less confusing. But I think, again, the hope. I think it was the Daily Reflections today talked about that kind of finally feeling a part of something. And I never knew how bad I needed that in my life. And I never knew how this program would fill that God-sized hole for so long and continue to help me, find a higher power of my understanding in a way that is approachable. And now we are like looking for a church, because we're going to we're going to bring our kids to Sunday school, and we're going to go to church, and we're, I'm not resentful against God. I'm not filled with that rage and resentment towards my higher power anymore. And it's just a real gift. So thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, my friend. Good to see you always, sister. Thanks for joining us.
Nice sweater. I love it.
Hey,
awesome.
It's always something pickles, Always something pickles.
Yes.
At Assembly, we are known as the pickle people.
Awesome.
Which is very cool. And Trish is just in time for the closing prayer, so I'm going to go ahead and read us out, because Shayna is putting the little one down. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order, but obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is a great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. And after a moment of silence for those who are still sick and suffering, because there's going to be a whole lot of people who die out there tonight in this world from our disease. Tragically, some of them have been to Alcoholics Anonymous and didn't want what we have to offer. and we know there's a solution. So, and I believe that we're all here because somebody else prayed for us. So after a moment of silence, we will circle up in our virtual pickle way, and we'll talk to God for a minute. So here's your moment. Thank you. And who will take us from shame to grace if we let him? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in the heavens. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for staying up with us. Thanks for being with us. You guys are primary purpose. You guys are the ones that make this group what it is.
Hey, Stephanie, how far from Eldridge